Have you ever pondered how far we as humans can go when given power over others? In the heart of the 20th century, a groundbreaking experiment sought to answer this very question, delving into the depths of our psychological relationship with power. This was the Stanford Prison Experiment. A brainchild of Dr. Philip Zimbardo and his team at Stanford University, this study focused on the struggle between prisoners and prison officers. It was a psychological exploration unlike any other, probing into the darkest corners of human nature and shedding light on the extraordinary effects of perceived power. Imagine, if you will, a group of ordinary people, just like you and me. From a wide array of backgrounds, they had one thing in common. They were all healthy, psychologically and physically. In the summer of 1971, they were selected to partake in an experiment that would forever change our understanding of power dynamics. The participants were divided into two groups, prisoners and prison officers, and placed in a mock prison environment created right in the basement of Stanford University's psychology department. The officers were given power over the prisoners, an authority they had never experienced before. And the prisoners? They were stripped of their freedom, their individuality, their agency. The experiment was initially planned to last for 2 weeks, but what unfolded in those simulated prison walls was a spectacle that went beyond anyone's prediction. The very fabric of normality started to unravel, revealing a disturbing pattern of human behavior under the influence of power. So it all boils down to this: what happens when you give ordinary people extraordinary power? What happens when you put them in an environment where they are the ones in control? What happens when the line between right and wrong starts to blur? So, what do you think happened when ordinary people were given extraordinary power? Imagine this, a mock prison set up in the basement of the Stanford Psychology building. A space that was once filled with the sounds of intellectual discourse and academic pursuits, transformed overnight into a chilling representation of a penitentiary. To delve into the dark side of human nature, an experiment was set up. The stage, a simulated prison environment complete with cells, barred doors, and solitary confinement. The actors? Ordinary individuals just like you and me, randomly assigned to play the roles of prisoners or guards. The participants had no criminal background, no psychological issues, and no discernible differences. They were all just average people, suddenly thrust into a world of power dynamics and authority. The guards were given uniforms, mirrored sunglasses to prevent eye contact, and a baton as a symbol of their authority. On the other hand, the prisoners were given ill-fitting smocks and stocking caps, stripped of their individuality and reduced to mere numbers. But this was no ordinary play. This was a psychological experiment designed to probe into the human psyche, to see how ordinary people would react when placed in extraordinary circumstances. The prison was real enough to convince the participants. The environment was carefully crafted to mimic a real-life prison scenario, with stringent rules, harsh living conditions, and a palpable air of tension and unease. The experiment was set to run for 2 weeks. 2 weeks for the participants to adapt to their roles, to inhabit the characters of guards and prisoners. 2 weeks for power dynamics to settle in, for authority to take its toll, for humanity to be tested. And yet, as meticulously as the stage was set, as carefully as the roles were assigned, nothing could have prepared anyone for what was about to unfold. The transformation was not just a shift in behavior or a change in personality, it was a metamorphosis that revealed the darkest depths of human nature. As the experiment began, no one could predict the depth of the transformation that was about to take place. With the stage set, the power dynamics began to unravel. The Stanford Prison Experiment, a study meant to observe, quickly spiraled into a spectacle of human behavior under the guise of power. In a matter of mere hours, the participants, regular students, began to embody their roles as guards and prisoners with a startling intensity. The guards, given the authority and the power to control, started to display signs of aggression and dominance. They began to perceive their role not just as an act, but as an innate aspect of their own personalities. This abuse of power wasn't gradual, it was almost immediate. The guards, emboldened by their uniforms, mirrored sunglasses and batons, started to enforce harsher and more arbitrary rules. They subjected the prisoners to psychological torture, including humiliation, sleep deprivation, and solitary confinement. Their actions were no longer driven by the experiment, but by the intoxicating allure of power and control. But what of the prisoners? Their reactions were just as alarming. They began to exhibit signs of extreme stress and anxiety. Some even started to believe in their prisoner status, accepting the guards' authority unquestioningly. The psychological toll was so severe that within just 6 days, the experiment had to be stopped. The rapid escalation of the guards' aggression and the prisoners' submission was a chilling demonstration of the impact of perceived power and authority. It was a testament to how quickly we can lose ourselves in a role, given the right circumstances. Throughout the experiment, it became evident that power doesn't just corrupt, it transforms. It has the ability to alter our behavior and our perceptions of ourselves and others. It revealed a darker side of human nature, one that is easily manipulated and swayed under the influence of power. In just a few days, the line between roleplay and reality began to blur. What started as an experiment turned into a disturbing reality, a reality that showcased the frightening potential of power dynamics in our society. 6 days, that's all it took for the experiment to descend into chaos. It began as a simple investigation into the psychological effects of perceived power and authority. But the Stanford Prison Experiment soon spiraled out of control, revealing a disturbing underbelly to human nature. The guards, intoxicated by their newfound authority, began to abuse their power, while the prisoners, stripped of their basic rights, were plunged into a state of distress and desperation. As the days passed, the line between simulation and reality blurred. The experiment was no longer just an experiment. It had morphed into a microcosm of a real prison, with real suffering and real emotional trauma. The guards became increasingly sadistic, and the prisoners increasingly depressed. It was a chilling illustration of how quickly and easily ordinary people could slip into roles that were alien and disturbing. It was on the 6th day that the reality of what was happening hit home. The distress of the prisoners had escalated to a level that was no longer ethically justifiable. The experiment was prematurely terminated, but the damage had already been done. The participants had been irreversibly affected by the experience, some showing signs of psychological trauma that would linger for years to come. What was perhaps most shocking was the revelation of how deeply ingrained these roles had become. The guards were reluctant to give up their authority, even after being told the experiment was over, and the prisoners, despite their relief, were left with a sense of humiliation and powerlessness that was hard to shake off. The Stanford Prison Experiment was meant to be a study of human behavior, but it ended up being a stark commentary on the dark side of human nature. It exposed the terrifying ease with which ordinary people could be manipulated into committing acts of cruelty and oppression. The experiment was a sobering reminder of the profound impact of power and authority on our behavior, and the devastating effects it can have on our mental well-being. It was a glimpse into the abyss of our potential for inhumanity. What started as an experiment had become a stark, distressing reality. So, what can we learn from the Stanford Prison Experiment? The aftermath of the Stanford Prison Experiment gives us a startling glimpse into the depths of human nature. The experiment, in its brief existence, revealed how ordinary individuals could morph into authoritarian figures when granted power, and how quickly others could succumb to oppressive environments. The findings of this experiment are not to be taken lightly. They paint a picture of how easily the roles we play can consume our identities. The guards, average people like you and me, became tyrants, exhibiting sadistic tendencies and relishing their newfound dominance. The prisoners, on the other hand, adopted their roles with disturbing ease, becoming submissive, dehumanized, and prone to mental breakdowns. This is a stark lesson in the psychology of power. Power doesn't corrupt people, people corrupt power. The guards were not inherently evil, but the situation, the power they were given, allowed a darker side of their nature to emerge. Moreover, the experiment highlighted the susceptibility of individuals to oppressive environments. The prisoners, despite knowing they were in an experiment, succumbed to despair and hopelessness. They internalized their roles, indicating how social situations and expectations can have a profound impact on our behavior and mental state. The implications of these findings extend far beyond the confines of the experiment. They make us question the nature of authority and obedience in society. They force us to examine how we as individuals might behave when placed in positions of power or subjugation. The Stanford Prison Experiment also underscores the importance of ethical considerations in psychological research. The distress caused to the participants was profound, and the experiment serves as a stark reminder of the need for rigorous ethical guidelines in research. In conclusion, the Stanford Prison Experiment opened our eyes to the complex dynamics of power, authority, and obedience. It showed us how easily we can lose ourselves in the roles we play, and the lengths we might go to preserve a given social order. The Stanford Prison Experiment stands as a chilling reminder of the dark side of human nature and the dangerous allure of power.